Deakins has shot a lot of films, but to me, the one that looks the most unique is Hail Caesar, and I mean that in the way that out of all of his films, this looks the most different. In today's video, I'll be looking at the equipment Deakins used, the lighting plans he used to achieve the 50s look, as well as how he and the Cummins created the look of the film. My last movie on film was True Grit about 5 or 6 years ago, and I have been on digital since then. On balance, I would have preferred to have shot Hail Caesar digitally, but we went back and forwards on this and went with film because of the subject. To look at the equipment, Deakins opted for the Arri LT and Arriflex 535B, his favourite film camera. He then paired these with one set of lenses, the Zeiss Master Primes. The LT is ideal for when you want a small camera that you can also use to sync sound, whilst the 535B is just Deakins' favourite film camera, as he has used it for the bulk of his career, well, since it came out. Like the 535B, the Master Primes are some of Deakins' favourite lenses. They are spherical and give an unbelievably clean and precise look. You can open them up all the way without losing much if any sharpness. By the way, he didn't on this film at least, he used around T4 to T5.6. And they feature almost zero distortion, creating a near optically perfect image that Deakins strives for. As for the stock, he used Kodak's Vision 350D for the Western and Roman exteriors, with everything else being shot on 200T and 500T. This is because he prefers tungsten balanced stocks. He did however enhance it with a little filtration, which he says was perhaps a 1/8 coral. The lighting in Hail Caesar mimics the style of old 1950s cinematography, and whilst it was quite a challenge for Deakins, he called it good fun. Now before I get started looking at the lighting plans, I want to look at the kinds of lighting Deakins actually used, because for him it's unusual. Instead of his normal use of soft lighting, which we have seen for many years now, Deakins went hard and used many more lights than he usually would, with Johansson's scene around the pool having around 110k Fresnels. Although a fun fact about that pool is that it was the same one Esther Williams used throughout the 40s and 50s. Now, as for the scene set in the Malibu house, it was constructed on a stage and surrounded by a green screen, as this would allow for maximum shooting time and for Deakins to take full control of the lighting. And as we can see from the lighting plans, it's absolutely full of lights. To start, the driveway is illuminated with not only 2 cable-ons from behind, but also a plethora of space lights with a quarter grid underneath. In front of the windows, he used several T12 Fresnels and bounced them off of reflectors. The lighting would have been more realistic throughout the scene if they were able to use a white backing instead of a green one, however due to the fact that they needed good separation and were shooting on film, they had to go with green. As for all of the practicals, they were built with the art department, and for the night interior scenes it was especially important that they had built-in overhead lights, as otherwise there would have been no other source. I have to include one of the offices in here somewhere, and it just has to be Joe Silverman's. Now this was shot on location, and as you can tell, it would have been a very small one, although this was mainly done due to it making sense in the schedule. But how did he actually light it? Well, while looking at the lighting plans, Deakins used several HMIs around the location, as well as skylights, practicals hung throughout, and an 18K on a lift outside. Now as for the night scenes, Deakins opted for a lot of practicals and some 650-watt Fresnels that were bounced off of unbleached muslin, and this was done very deliberately. As for the shots angled towards the window, a backlit arrow sign was placed outside. Whenever I think of Hail Caesar, I think of scenes like this, where we have a painted backdrop, incredible colours and that classic 50s hard lighting. Now the look of this scene was based on a combination of scenes from similar films like Ben-Hur and Quo Vadis. However, the dramatic backlighting was lit with a combination of blue and pink gels, which I'm not sure they would have used. As for the scenes set in what looks like direct sunlight, Deakins used a combination of T12s, fades and lightning flashes that were supplied by a Lightning Strikes team. However, I can't seem to find anything on how they created them. He also intended to use a wind machine to blow dust across the scene for the crucifixion scene, but it turned out to create a problem that didn't really need to be there. This is a really interesting one, as if you remember earlier when I mentioned that Deakins would have preferred to use a white screen over a green screen for lighting purposes, in the Grauman Theatre he got a chance to, as it was easy to key the white from the negative. Doing this allowed him to light the audience watching the film in a more realistic way than would have been possible with a green screen. As we can see from the lighting plans, Deakins used a ton of lighting, with 2Ks in the lobby, tweenies in the central bar, 2K Fresnels in the walkway, practicals that would be dimmed down in the theatre, tweenies that would be bounced off gold cards, tweenies uplighting all of the architecture, as well as 5 2Ks on a flicker that imitate the screen. The look of Hail Caesar is bold and really memorable, and it's mostly down to the elements of 50s cinematography: harsh and bold lighting, wider lenses, pretty deep focus, as well as many other factors. In an interview with Deakins, he notes that Ethan Coen wanted to keep the films within the films similar to the rest of the film, so this didn't look too far removed from the main picture. So whilst an epic may have been shot in CinemaScope or 70mm, they decided against shooting certain scenes in that format. So we decided that the Roman epic, cowboy western, drawing room drama, swimsuit movie, song and dance picture, and surreptitious Hitchcockian Soviet submarine elements should all be restrained somewhat. You can only do so much with lighting, lenses and composition though, and the choice to use film was one that Deakins wasn't immediately into, as after 2010 he claimed he would only shoot digital from then on. But when the film calls for it to be shot on film, you have to do what's best for the story. It also ends up adding a lot to the overall look, and whilst I'm sure you could mimic whatever stock you wanted to with digital, as Steve Yedlin has proved, sometimes you just need the real thing. As for the composition though, the film is played in 1.85:1, however they framed the film with a 1.33:1 crop in mind, and there are some scenes in the western epics that were in 1.33:1, but what else adds to the look? Well, most notably, the colour, and in terms of colouring the film, not much was actually needed, apart from pushing the reds and other colours of it. As for the inspiration for the look, we looked at the choreography and camera work in clips from Heather Williams' movies and Gene Kelly's movies too. We looked at some of Charlton Heston's big moments in Ben-Hur as well, but that was about it. So in creating a 50s epic, Deakins utilised harsh lighting, wider lenses, as well as pushing colours in the DI process. He also shot on film for the first time in 5 years, and there couldn't have been a better film to do it on. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. You know what to do if you did. If you have a recommendation for an analysis, leave it down below. Thank you so much for watching, and maybe I'll see you next time. Bye.